It was just after sunrise on January 12th, 2025, when a jogger named Lila Harmon made a discovery that would ripple far beyond the quiet trails of Whitaker Forest, Oregon. Nestled between frost-bitten trees and under a thin layer of fog, a woman was lying motionless, barefoot, eyes closed, her skin pale and lips slightly blue. She wasn't bleeding. She wasn't bruised. She was simply there, like she had been placed gently on the earth. At first, Lila assumed she had stumbled upon a homeless woman, perhaps a runaway or someone in distress. But as emergency services arrived, details began to stand out. The woman's clothes were pristine, a vintage-style dress, perfectly pressed. Not a single leaf, speck of mud, or torn seam. It was as if she had never walked through the forest at all. Like she had appeared there, instantly, untouched by the world around her. The woman was transported to St. Agnes Hospital in the nearby town of Redwood Ridge. Though unconscious, her vitals were unusually stable, almost too perfect, according to one of the paramedics. No bruises, no internal injuries, and no signs of malnourishment or recent trauma. But when they tried to identify her, nothing came up. No ID, no matching fingerprints, no DNA profile in any state or federal system. It was as if she didn't exist. Doctors estimated her age between 36 and 39. Her body was in peak condition, better than average for a woman her age. But the mystery deepened when they performed a neurological scan. Her brain activity was off, not damaged, just different. There were unique waveforms and synchronicities that didn't correspond to any known medical condition. A neuroscientist reviewing the scans later said, "It's like looking at someone who dreams in dimensions we don't understand." For 36 hours, she lay comatose, unmoving. A nurse claimed her heartbeat was synchronized with the monitor's beeping, so precise it gave her chills. Then, at 2:14 a.m., on January 14th, the woman opened her eyes. No grogginess, no slow recovery. Her eyes shot open with clarity and awareness. She sat up, looked around the room, and whispered something no one could understand. That moment marked the true beginning of a mystery that still has no end. When hospital staff tried to speak with her, she didn't respond in any recognizable language. But she was speaking. Softly at first, then more urgently. Her tone was rhythmic, musical, but filled with urgency. Language experts were called in, but none could place it. It wasn't a dialect or a code. It had grammar, repetition, structure, but no roots in any human culture. Linguist Dana Kim called it a language without a past. And yet, the woman seemed completely fluent. She called herself Kaela. When asked where she was from, she responded with a word: Deloras. No one knew what it meant. It wasn't in any database, not a city, not a surname, not a word in any known language. Kaela wrote it repeatedly, sometimes next to strange symbols or diagrams. To her, Deloras was everything. A place, a memory, a warning, or something else entirely. Over the next few days, Kaela filled dozens of sheets of paper with intricate drawings. They showed things no one had ever seen: towering machines, underground cities, maps of constellations that didn't match our sky. One image stood out: a massive circular structure, surrounded by what looked like a mirrored ocean. She labeled it Axisum. According to her, Axisum was where the world began, and where it would end. One drawing in particular made headlines online. It was a map, detailed, sprawling, and utterly alien. At the center was a glowing city labeled New Dresden, surrounded by roads that spiraled outward like the rings of a tree. Some roads ended abruptly, others looped back into themselves. It looked like a city built for beings who could bend time. Reddit sleuths and digital archivists tried to decode it for weeks. No one could agree on what it meant, but everyone agreed. It was not from here. Speculation spread fast. Was Kaela from the future? A parallel Earth? Or the survivor of a failed experiment in time displacement? Conspiracy theorists lit up forums with theories involving secret labs, CERN, and ancient prophecies. But when the FBI arrived and quietly took her into custody, any hope of answers faded. Kaela was gone, moved to a federal research facility in Oregon, and no one was allowed to speak of her again. For weeks there was silence, no official statement, no media coverage. It was as if Kaela had been erased. But then, a leak surfaced online. A blurry image, allegedly from the research facility, showed a brain scan with strange anomalies, glowing regions shaped like geometric patterns. The post was quickly taken down, but not before it spread across conspiracy forums. The patterns weren't random. They resembled symbols from her drawings, suggesting a terrifying possibility. Kaela's mind wasn't just different, it was designed. The facility holding Kaela was later identified through satellite images as a black site complex east of Portland. High walls, no signage, no known records of government funding. Those who tried to investigate faced cease and desist orders, or worse. One journalist, Mateo Quinn, vanished days after publishing a blog post titled, "The Woman Who Spoke in Echoes." Only his car was found. Inside, a sketch of Kaela's New Dresden was tucked into the passenger seat. It had a red X marked over a point labeled Threshold Gate. Around this time, a whistleblower going by the alias Agent Lark began leaking documents anonymously. Among them were logs from the research team, typed notes describing their confusion, fear, and obsession. One note read, "She hums when exposed to certain light frequencies. The pitch matches solar flares." Another, "Subjects exposed to her voice reported vivid dreams of events that hadn't happened yet." Then, they did. Kaela wasn't just a linguistic anomaly. She was changing people. The most shocking leak was a set of audio recordings. Kaela, speaking in her unknown language, her voice overlapping in eerie layers, like multiple versions of herself were speaking at once. Spectral analysis revealed that embedded within the voice were high-frequency pulses, far above human hearing. Digital forensic teams discovered a secondary pattern hidden in the noise. It was binary. Once decoded, it formed coordinates, pointing to a remote lake called Salome, deep in the Cascade Range. A place with no documented human activity. A private expedition, funded by an anonymous donor, was dispatched to Lake Salome. Divers found nothing for days. But then, 19 meters beneath the surface, wedged into a crevice of black rock, they found a box. Metallic, sealed, etched with a symbol identical to one found in Kaela's drawings. 3 concentric circles intersected by a vertical line. It took hours to dislodge. When they brought it to the surface, it began to vibrate softly, as if reacting to air or time. The box was taken to a lab in Seattle for analysis. Lead researcher Dr. Anya Patel described it as not built with any known alloy. It had no hinges, no visible seams. But when exposed to high-frequency audio, similar to Kaela's voice, it unlocked. Inside was a coin-shaped object, about 2 inches in diameter. Smooth, mirror-like, and emitting a low electromagnetic hum. When held under certain lighting, a holographic image flickered into view. It was Kaela's face, and a single line of symbols beneath her gaze. The symbols, once compared with Kaela's earlier writings, were partially translated. They read, "Under mirror, follow echo, rejoin." Linguists struggled to interpret the message. Was it a command, a prophecy, a set of instructions? At the same time, electromagnetic interference spiked in the lab. Computers shut down. Phones rang with no caller ID, emitting the same layered voice from the audio files. One technician collapsed, claiming he saw a city of light and 2 moons. And then, the lab burned. Officially, the fire was ruled an electrical fault, but no one believed that. The disk vanished, presumed destroyed. 3 researchers died, 2 went missing, and Dr. Patel was institutionalized, repeating one word over and over: Deloras. Some believe she had finally understood what Kaela meant. Others think she'd simply seen too much. Whatever the truth, the facility was abandoned, its data erased. But the Kaela phenomenon wasn't over. Not long after the fire, people around the world began reporting strange dreams. Dreams of a mirrored ocean, of a woman standing at its edge, holding the disk. Dreams where clocks melted and stars fell upward. Psychologists dismiss them as viral suggestion. Mass hysteria, fueled by internet rumor. But there was something else. In every report, the dreamer described the same final moment. Kaela turning to them and saying, in perfect English, "You were there. You always were." Then came the vanishings. People in Oregon, in Ireland, in Kazakhstan. Individuals with no connections, no history of mental illness, gone without a trace. All of them had posted online about Kaela. All had drawn her symbol. In each case, a final message was left behind. The mirror opens from the inside. Authorities denied any link, but those watching closely knew the pattern. The mirror hadn't closed. It was widening. On April 2nd, 2025, nearly 3 months after Kaela's discovery, a fisherman named Raul de Soto made a report to the sheriff's office in Klamath County. He claimed he had pulled something not meant for this world from the waters of Lake Salome. It wasn't a fish or debris. It was a mirror. Rectangular, cold to the touch, but with no reflection. Instead, it shimmered with moving images. Skies, machines, a woman walking backward through time. Raul dropped it. When he returned with others, it was gone. Then came the broadcasts. Shortwave radios across the Northwest began picking up strange signals, static laced with rhythmic pulses, like breathing. When converted to audio, the pulses formed a melody, repeating, hypnotic. Audio engineers traced it back to frequencies used in Kaela's recordings. One engineer claimed that slowing it down revealed a voice whispering, "She never left." The message repeated every 23 hours, always in the same voice, always ending with a single word: rejoin. That same month, graffiti began appearing around Portland. Not tags, not art. Precise diagrams, identical to Kaela's blueprints, drawn with surgical accuracy on walls, sidewalks, even freeway signs. No one saw who painted them. Security footage failed to capture their appearance. Each symbol glowed faintly under UV light. And always, always, they pointed in one direction, due east, toward the Cascades, toward the forest where Kaela was found. A small group of followers formed online. They called themselves the Echoed. Their belief that Kaela was not just a visitor, but a messenger from a fractured future. They shared coordinates, symbols, dreams. They believed the mirror was a portal, one that could be opened only from the inside, as the messages said, and that when the time was right, Kaela would return. Not alone, but with those who had crossed, those who had rejoined. On May 27th, a video surfaced on the dark web, grainy, distorted. It showed a woman in a hospital gown walking through a tunnel of mirrors. Her reflection didn't match her movements. In one mirror, she was Kaela. In another, a child. In another, Ash. As the video ended, a distorted voice spoke. She was not born. She was returned. The uploader deleted their account minutes later, but the video spread like wildfire. To this day, no one has identified its source. And then, silence. No new sightings, no new signals. The online forums grew quiet. The forest was empty. But the questions remained. Who or what was Kaela? Was she a time traveler, a failed experiment, or a fragment of something far more complex? Something we aren't equipped to understand? The lack of answers became the story. The absence became the signal. And silence, the loudest message of all. Still, every January 12th, people gather at the edge of Whitaker Forest. They bring candles, radios, strange drawings. They play Kaela's frequencies into the trees. Sometimes the wind changes. Sometimes the static pulses back. One year, a boy wandered too far from the group. He returned minutes later, soaking wet, eyes wide, holding something cold and silver. When asked where he found it, he replied, "She gave it to me. She said it's almost time." They say the brain forgets pain to protect itself. But what if the world forgets entire people to protect reality? What if Kaela wasn't the first? What if she was simply the first one who slipped through clean, without error, without trace, without permission? And what if that mirror under Lake Salome was never a mirror at all, but a doorway, or worse, a crack? To this day, the forest remains quiet, but sometimes, just before dawn, locals report hearing something in the trees, a woman's voice, speaking a language that hums like memory, faint, layered, and always accompanied by a faint glow through the mist. No one dares go closer. Not anymore. Because what they hear next is not Kaela. It's something else, calling them by name. So if you ever find yourself walking alone near still water, and you see something shimmering beneath the surface, don't reach for it. Don't speak to it. Don't listen too long. Because the mirror doesn't just reflect what is, it reflects what's coming. And some reflections don't want to stay on the other side. Not anymore.